So these three pathways, methods, practices, as I understand them, they work together and enhance each other. They're all part of a program, so to speak, for waking up. And the first one I wish to speak about is this meditation practice. Now, you may know or may not know there are many versions of meditation. There are visualization practices, mantra repetition practices, chanting, etc., etc. But there's one kind of meditation practice which I find particularly powerful, and it's because it's barely a practice at all. It's what you might call a natural practice. It's, on some level, who we are, and that's this simple mindfulness awareness practice. What makes it so natural and what makes it so simple is that it's just barely enough technique to take our natural minds and sharpen them up a little so that we can see through the obstacles that are between us and this awakening, and that we can see beyond those obstacles at some point. So as far as, how do you do that? Well, you'd probably be wise to go to some kind of a meditation center and learn a practice. I'm going to share with you the practice that I learned because it meets this criteria for being extremely simple. Nothing special about it. It's not meant to be a holy practice. It's not meant to create great catharses or dramatic moments. It's just how we gradually wake ourselves up. So, you sit down, take a little time out of your life to actually just be present, be in the moment, and you could leave it there. Some practices almost leave it right there. But then probably what will happen is that you'll find your mind drifting a lot, if you're anything like me and a lot of people I know. So there's a little technique that is extremely natural, and that is just to pay attention to your breath as it comes in and out. And the reason for that is because it happens all the time. You don't have to think about your breath. You breathe all night while you're sleeping, right? So the breath is real. It's an anchor that brings us into the moment. So you sit down. Sitting up straight is a good thing to do as well. Helps keep the body from getting too sore if you're going to stay there for a while. Also mirrors a kind of a dignity and alertness, which is good, I think. Good thing to do. So you sit down, sit up straight, maybe put your hands on your knees, cup them like this. Again, it's not meant to be a precious practice, so just something that keeps you there and keeps you more or less upright and dignified. And you pay attention to the breath in a gentle way. And before you know it, well, maybe in 2 seconds, maybe in 20 minutes, you're gone. You're off in Never Never Land. You're thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about yesterday. You're repeating a repetitive thought. You've got a song stuck in your head. You're obsessed with the pain in your knee. Anything that takes you out of full presence, full actual real presence in the moment is considered in this practice to be thinking, discursive thought. So you're gone. We don't catch that moment when we leave. But at some point, again, whether it's 2 seconds or 20 minutes later, and it's important to say that it doesn't matter how long that period is, there will come a point when you recognize that you've been in thought land. And in the technique, the way it was taught to me, you simply acknowledge that with a little subliminal thinking and come back to the breath. And in doing that kind of practice, repeatedly over years, as I said, it's a gradual path. It's a gentle path for the most part. We begin to see through our own obstacles. We bring things out of the hidden corners that we hadn't recognized or acknowledged before. And we see that we are not those problems. They are things that exist. They are events, they are emotions, they are thoughts that exist in a context of something bigger. So we allow them to rise up, and we see them, and we allow them to fall away. And even if we have to do that 1,000 times, we just keep doing it. And in that way, we gradually wake ourselves up and see that there's something bigger than those things, that we're in a context of connectedness to the planet, to the spirit. The second practice, method, or pathway that I want to speak about is prayer. Now, that could be a trigger word for a lot of people, and certainly for myself and many other people, we didn't see that there was anything particularly in prayer as we were growing up. I grew up in the Anglican Church. If you're in the States, you might know that as a version of the Episcopalian Church. And of course, prayer was part of that, but it didn't look to me like people were really connecting with it, that people didn't really believe that their prayers could have an impact on the material world. I was also, as I mentioned earlier, involved with Tibetan Buddhism for a long time, and there was a deepening of that understanding and a true sincerity in offering good thoughts, kind thoughts, beneficial thoughts to other people. But in all honesty, I think that most of us didn't really believe that we could impact events beyond ourselves. We really thought we were training our own minds in compassion and bodhisattva activity, as it's called. But when I became involved with the Native American Church about 8 years ago, I was really in for an eye-opener. It really changed my understanding of how prayer can function. And what I would say simply right off the top about that is that it's the understanding of the power of mind. It's the understanding of intention. And what the people in the Native American Church and many other indigenous people, certainly in America, understand and have understood over the long course of history is that if you can put your mind in the right place, in the right circumstances, aligned with natural forces, so to speak, with the spirit, with the Tao of the way things move, there is actually the possibility of impacting the material world. The Native American Church has deeply understood this, and I've had some stunning realizations. I've seen some remarkable things myself, and I've been told many, many stories of things that had happened, which in the conventional, modern world, where you'd be going, no, that's not possible. People have come into meetings and come out with, they come into meetings with a broken leg and come out walking. I've heard this from really reliable sources. I've seen people make major changes in their lives. So the point of prayer here is that when we can put our minds in the right place, when we can open up our hearts, put our concentration and our confidence together, and especially when more than one person, when a group of people can get together. In the Native American Church, they speak of united hearts. And I'll get into the medicine part later that you heard me mention, but I need to mention something about that right now, because in the Native American Church, the use of the medicine deeply empowers and clarifies and strengthens the potential of prayer. So the way I see prayer as part of this overall picture that I was talking about, the radical consciousness transformation required on this planet, is working with it and understanding it in this way is a way in which we understand the power of our own minds to change things. Many of you have heard about this notion of we create our own reality. Well, that's a maybe oversimplified way of putting it, but there is much to be learned that's not been well understood in the mainstream cultures, so to speak. And now I wish to speak about the plant medicines. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, these are highly controversial, tricky, this is a highly controversial and tricky subject to address. The reason that I wish to speak about it is because I have had quite a bit of experience with these plants myself. I'm indeed not a master or an expert. I'm not one of the elders in any of these traditions, but I have learned a lot. And I have a strong conviction, which isn't just mine by any stretch, comes from many people, that there are visionary, teaching, healing plants which have great potential for helping us wake up at this crucial time. An elder who is actually a close friend of mine in the Native American Church has said to me that he and others have had a vision, and the vision is that there will be 3 particular of these types of plants which will play a highly significant role in planetary consciousness change. And those are ayahuasca, peyote, and iboga. Now, many of you have perhaps never heard of iboga. I'm going to speak about each of those 3, and also another one that's not part of that, but may also have an important role to play in these events. What is classically known as set and setting are highly important to working with them. The plants are not for everybody, and ideally they need to be used in the right context, because they're very hard to understand what they're actually capable of, and it's certainly not understood by most people when they're done casually. And recreationally, out of the question in terms of what we're talking about here. So what we're talking about is really learning how to use these plants and work with them so that they're understood as medicines, as teachers, and as visionary guides. And it is understood among the people who work with these kinds of plants that probably the best way to learn about them is to turn to the experts, the people who have used them a lot. And for the most part, that tends to be indigenous people who've often been working with these plants for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So ayahuasca in particular, I address it first because it's almost certainly the most accessible of these major plant healer, visionary, teaching, guiding plants. And it's spreading rapidly around the planet. Its natural habitat is the Amazonian region of South America. And there are two streams of activity which are spreading rapidly into many other countries. One is what's known as the syncretic churches. Santo Daime, the Vegetable Union, and a couple of others are becoming legitimized in many countries these days and are setting up branches in many countries. And the other stream is what you might call the shamanic, traditional jungle method of working with these plants. And that also is spreading, certainly in my knowledge, very commonly around North America and parts of Europe and Australia at this point. So this plant is becoming increasingly accessible. More and more people have heard about it. And in terms of this vision, it may again play a very important role in waking us up. It's a remarkable plant. It's an extremely powerful plant. It functions as a what you could call an instructor. And people say this repeatedly, that when you work with ayahuasca over a long period of time, what it will do is it will give you insights and lessons for you to work with and to take away and bring into your daily walk. And if you do that, the next time you come back to meet it, it will take you further. And this can go on it's a lifetime practice, actually. So it's an extremely powerful plant that way. There's a key issue that I wish to speak about in terms of ayahuasca because of this rapid spread. And that is that because of the fact that it's changing so quickly and getting out there so quickly, there's a possibility of what you could call the purity of the lineage and the tradition and the almost professionalism of the way that it's done being corrupted, because there's money to be made, I'll say, and there are people coming along who don't necessarily have the proper degree of training and perhaps even not the right attitude. So I think it's really important to caution anyone who's working with this plant, both as a participant and also if you think that you could be a leader, a ceremony leader, to be very responsible and ethical about how this is done. The people that I know, I've drank this medicine 11 or 12 times at this point, sometimes in its natural habitat in Peru, and also up in the northwest of North America. And the people that I've worked with up here, although they're not native, they're doing it right. They're going down 2 to 3 months every year and working with their teachers. They're doing what are known as plant diets, where they work with a particular plant to get to know it and take it on as an ally. And they're basically being ethical about it. Yes, they're making money, but they're attempting to make a living like other people. So I just want to caution again that to avoid backlashes from authorities and to see this medicine out into the world where it can really benefit people, we're praying that it be done right with humility and reverence and ethical responsibility.